So, Ed, you've announced a funding program that is funded by tax increases on business, tax increases on banks, on oil companies, on big tech. You want to increase capital gains tax for the very rich. You want to tax share buybacks. Is this a business-friendly agenda or a business-unfriendly agenda?
But I think if you set aside with our economic policy, where we want to help people get back into work through our health policies, our care policies, what businesses tell me is they need more employees. And then you set aside it with our pro-European agenda, where we want to strike a much better trade deal with the European Union. The Conservatives' trade deal has been an absolute disaster for the city, for many investors. And I think you set it aside with those real economic policies, then I think this is very much a pro-business agenda.
In terms of the City of London is struggling at the moment to keep the current listings it's got. It's struggling to attract new listings. You want to tax share buybacks, and as I've already indicated, you want to talk about capital gains tax going up as well for the very rich. Again, is this an agenda that is positive for the City of London?
Yeah, I mean, most people who pay capital gains tax at the moment will get a capital gains tax cut. It's only the very, very wealthy who would get a capital gains tax increase. So we're the only ones actually offering a capital gains tax cut to anyone. And then you set that aside, the fact that Joe Biden in the United States has got the share buyback policy, so it's no difference from New York. So I actually think if you look at our pro-business in terms of trade, in terms of investment, this is a real agenda that I think will be welcomed by many in the city.
I think it'd be inflationary, though, raising taxes on business. A lot of companies will simply say, you raise my costs, I will simply pass that on to the consumer. That will be inflationary.
Not the sectors we're going for. They're making really huge profits and they can withstand it. So, for example, our proposal for the social media giants and the Googles and the Amazons, I think everyone realises that just increasing the digital service tax so we can help the mental health of our young people, that's a good choice. And I think a lot of people in business who've got families, who've got children, young people suffering from mental health will realise that's the right choice.
We're standing right in the middle of the commuter belt. We talk about kind of the City of London. How important is the finance industry, though, for the Liberal Democrats? How high up the agenda would that sector be? A lot of people around here work indirectly in that space.
Well, very high, as one of the reasons why we've always been the most pro-European party. We think that Britain was better when it was able to trade better in financial services. And we think what the Conservatives have done to the City of London has been a near disaster. And the City of London, because it's so fantastic, it's been resilient. And I really welcome that. But I think it needs support. I also want to look at the way regulators operate in the city. I think there's a bit of a risk-averse culture that you get from the Treasury. And I think if we can look at that, people in the city tell me that would make a big difference too. So we've been engaging with banks, with people in the investment community, and they really like what we're saying.
You talk about the EU, and within your manifesto you talked about a desire to rejoin the single market. You talked about ultimately a desire to rejoin the EU. Yet you've put it right at the back. We're all wondering why it's kind of circa page 100 in the manifesto.
Listen, that's where the international section was. But listen, we couldn't be clearer. We're the only party talking positively about engaging with our European friends and neighbours. We're talking about rebuilding that trust and relationships that have been so poisoned by the Conservatives. When I talk to businesses, they say we're not investing in the UK because there's no long-term strategy, there's no real link up with Europe, and people are taking their money elsewhere. And I think that's really sad. And under the Liberal Democrats, you'd get a long-term, stable policy, and we're so committed to that stability, so we could tackle these issues about the problems with regulators, get better trade deals. That's the sort of climate that would attract investment. When we were, for example, in government and running the energy sector, we saw tens of billions of pounds invested in the UK because of Liberal Democrat policies. We introduced contracts for difference, which were transformative in improving our electricity system and making it go low carbon. And that system of financial instrument was copied the world over. So I'm really proud of our record, I'm proud of our policies, and I'm particularly excited because in places like this, maybe a bit windy and a bit blowy and a bit rainy today, but the sun is shining on the Liberal Democrats.
I'm just waiting for the thunder to start, just to add to that chorus that you're speaking about. So basically, I can say with a degree of certainty after having heard what you just said that a vote for the Liberal Democrats is a vote to rejoin the single market. Is that pushing it too far, or is that fair to say?
Well, what we are saying is that we're realistic about the time scale for that. It can't be done overnight.
Yep.
We've got to rebuild that relationship with our European colleagues. When I've spoken to European politicians like Christian Lindner, the finance minister of Germany,
Yep.
He says, look, there is a trade on the table. It falls a bit short of the single market initially because I'm afraid European friends don't quite trust the UK any longer. And who can blame them, given the way the Conservatives have broken the rule of law and treated our European neighbours? So we've got to build that friendship back. You can do that with a good trade deal to start with,
Yep.
and gradually over time we have a 4-phase process that could get us back into the single market, but it may take a while.
One of the big takeaways from the recent EU elections was that there was clearly a deprioritisation by voters of the green agenda, of the climate agenda. You've put that at the heart of your agenda. Why do you think British voters are going to see things differently?
Well, because that's what's telling us on the doorstep. Our campaign, for example, on sewage, where the water company has been allowed by the regulators and the Conservatives to pump their filthy sewage into our rivers, into our lakes, into our seas. Voters don't like that, and they see that as a green agenda that they want a government to get behind, sort out the water industry and regulation. And actually, what we showed in government, what the Liberal Democrats showed in government, is if you get the right policies, working with private investors, you can get billions of pounds of investment and reduce the cost of energy. Isn't it amazing that thanks to Liberal Democrat policies, we're not only the world leader in offshore wind, attracting billions of pounds investment, but we've got the price of that down. So renewables are not just the most popular form, but they're the cheapest form of electricity. That is a Liberal Democrat achievement I'm really proud of.
The climate is clearly playing quite a substantial part in this conversation, but I'll give you a couple more questions. The IFS has talked about a conspiracy of silence when it comes to the need for tax tax hikes and also for spending cuts. Are you part of that conspiracy?
Not at all. I think we are the parties, indeed you yourself said, who found ways to make sure we can be fiscally responsible. I think the markets, the city, the country needs a party that is going to take this financial challenge seriously, and we are. And so I'm proud that not only are we the most ambitious party in terms of investment and the economy, but we're also the most fiscally responsible.
And the bravest when it comes to the weather. Ed, I will leave it there. I don't think we can tolerate any more of this. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Greatly appreciate it.